Hello again. Welcome to Word Crumbs in our Psalm reflections for this month of September. And today is the 15th of the month, and we celebrate the memorial of Our Lady of Sorrows. But today, as we continue with our Psalm reflections, I would like to start again just by reading the Psalm. And this is the response. How great are the works of the Lord! And let us listen to the Psalm to let it describe how Our Lady of Sorrows has to do with the greatness of God's works and how we are capacitated by God, by the Lord, in order to also live the different sorrows of our life. So let us listen together or read together. I will give thanks to the Lord with all my heart, in the company and assembly of the just. Great are the works of the Lord, exquisite in all their delights. Majesty and glory are his work, and his justice endures forever. He has won renown for his wondrous deeds. Gracious and merciful is the Lord. He has given food to those who fear him. He will forever be mindful of his covenant. He has made known to his people the power of his works, giving them the inheritance of the nations. So once again, the response here is, let's go back to that. How great are the works of the Lord? So the question I invite you to reflect, if you like to just read the Psalm again and to pray it, but with a question in mind, which I like to introduce as a meditation point. When we talk about the greatness of the works of God, somehow we've gone through different aspects, how he has been great. So first, he's exquisite. His details of his greatness are very sensitive. God is like an artist, like a chef who really knows how to cook well. He doesn't just give you food. He makes it in a way that you can accept it. He brings it and prepares it in a way that you find fascination in the way that he works. Not so obvious sometimes, very subtle, but we receive the gift. Another characteristic is his justice and mercy, the balance between being a just God and being a merciful God. And how does he help us to live that as people, as human beings, or as children of God? The balance between justice and mercy, because we know that hard justice can be very terrible, but being too merciful without justice doesn't help also. And lastly, it says here, he gives food, he nourishes, as we said, no, but in a very sensitive way, because he remembers and he loves us. He remembers his covenant and he's committed to us. And the last verse here is where I would like to focus. The way that his great works is the inheritance of the nations. And what is that? That is our culture, the different cultures of the world. You know, today I'm wearing a very cultural shirt of the culture that I come from. And it gives a different feeling even to myself to wear this shirt, to remind myself of my cultural origins, that I'm not just Christian, I'm not just a human being like everybody else, but there's something very specific that God has given to me in order to feed me, in order to show me the balance between justice and mercy, in order to help me to understand what love is, God's love and God's care is, in a very subtle way, which is through my culture. This is the reflection question I would like you to have today, talking about the works of God. Would you consider that your culture was created by God? Do you appreciate your own culture? Whatever culture you come from. I come from a culture, my mom is Peranakan, my dad is Cantonese. We are of different cultures, but because of the culture, I've learned certain ways of loving. I've learned certain ways of living in order to survive, in order to experience the balance between justice and mercy, because of how my culture, that my parents, my relatives, my people have transmitted to me. So, for example, my culture is a very family-oriented culture, very family-oriented. We love to gather relatives, um, all amongst us, huge families. It amazes us, and we enjoy a lot being together, all of us. But sometimes, because of our globalized culture, there becomes a uniformity that happens, and this Pope Francis speaks a lot about this. The kind of uniformity that exalts technology, exalts the economic benefits, and sometimes plays down the value of our cultures. The cultural values that we have somehow seem to be weakened. So, for example, the sense of family sometimes is weakened by the sense of technology, of efficiency. We don't want to gather because it takes a lot of time to gather, to have feasts, to cook for each other. It takes time. So our technological and economic mind sometimes makes us undervalue what we have from our culture that God gave us to survive. An economic society, or rather, that only focuses on the economy, thinks about money. How many families are divided because of money? The exaltation and the idolatry of the financial benefits, and it divides. The sense of family that I was talking about, that God reinforces. God is also family. That's why there's Father, Son, Holy Spirit. God created families. God created cultures so that we would base our values in life also on relationships, not only on economic matters, not only on this comparison of who is more efficient, who is more effective, who is less in the world. There is a certain danger of our globalized society to lose the value of our cultures. And I really believe one of the great works of God, in a very natural and spontaneous way, and sometimes we're not even aware, He takes care of us. He helps us to survive, but not only to survive, He helps us to thrive because of the cultures of our peoples. The people we belong to, there has been a certain evolved way of living well, enjoying life, and being nourished, as we said. We have justice, but in our cultures, there's a certain balance of mercy that maybe other cultures don't understand. Why are they so forgiving, these people? Because they learned how to balance justice with mercy. And all this comes from God. And as I said, it comes in such a subtle way through our cultures that we don't even notice. We don't even notice that God is taking care of us in an exquisite way, in a delightful way. I mean, who doesn't enjoy the values, the celebrations of their own culture? Today, I invite you to ponder a little bit more about your culture as a gift from God to take care of you, your family, your people. And I ask you to reflect, what values of your culture would you like to recover? What value, maybe one main value that you have, maybe 2 or 3 values of your culture, would you like to recover and realize and thank God for these gifts, and to try to defend them, to work on them, transmit them to your children, to your grandchildren, because culture is the inheritance of the nations. Cultures, not just singular, but cultures are the inheritance of the nations, and it's God's gift for us to thrive as his people.